This is lecture 6. We're going to stay in prehistory here a bit. We're going to talk about artifacts, how they're preserved on the one hand and destroyed on the other. It's worth thinking about how do we know about the past. Of course, in modern times, we have archives, we have libraries and computers that have all this information. You move back in time and you find your historians using letters and journals and photographs. And of course, we can go back further and further to find human artifacts all over the world, from human remains to tools and weapons, religious artifacts, fertility goddesses, and so on. For prehistory, of course, we just talked about opaque documents in our last lecture. Here, I want to take a few minutes just to see how artifacts are preserved so that we can examine them, or how they're destroyed and lost forever. So let's start with preservation of artifacts. Places where artifacts can sort of say safely hidden until we find them. Undisturbed pasture, for instance. You've all seen large pastures with cattle feeding. Obviously, if there are artifacts beneath the surface there, they're going to remain safely there and undisturbed, same as in a desert or in a forest that's undisturbed. Aridity can help preserve artifacts. Here, dryness or desiccation. This prevents decay, as the lack of water ensures the absence of many destructive microorganisms. Good examples, Egyptian or Peruvian mummies. You've all seen images of these. These are extremely dry environments, which allows for preservation. Extreme cold does the same thing. It prevents normal decay. My favorite example of this, of course, and you can see the photograph here of a baby mammoth, an extinct animal, found, I believe, in northern China, or perhaps it was further north in Siberia. A baby mammoth had fallen into a pit that had frozen over and had remained there for many thousands of years. Once discovered, the scientists could actually examine the last meal of this young mammoth, his last meal, I suppose, and could examine the contents of his stomach. So extreme cold or extreme dryness are key factors in the preservation of artifacts. And of course, we have bogs or peat marshes, which create a sort of a homeostasis environment, an unchanging environment, which prevents decay. You can see good examples of this in National Geographic, the so-called bog people. You can Google this or look at the images we supply for you. And you see these people are beautifully preserved for thousands of years. Their skin has an obviously leather-like texture, but the preservation is remarkable. Of course, volcanic ash can preserve human artifacts as well. The best example here is one you're probably familiar with, the ancient Roman city of Pompeii. Pompeii was destroyed by the volcano Vesuvius in, I think it's 79 of the Common Era. This is ironic because the volcanic ash both destroyed the city and its people, and then at the same time preserved it. So as we dig down through the ash into the city, this Roman civilization emerges. And again, you can look at the photographs we supply for you here. Aerial photography has allowed us to identify human artifacts that otherwise may have gone undetected. And I'll give you two examples. You can see here the photograph of the serpent mound. This is located in Ohio in the United States. Again, here's the snake again. We talked about origin myths last time, and we see it emerge here again. If you're walking along the ground and you cross over this mound, it may just look like a rise in the earth. From the air, you can see that it's obviously an immense snake. And then, of course, the infamous Nazca lines up on a high plateau in South America. You can see these immense carvings of monkeys and birds and different creatures. This took a great coordinated effort, and of course the question again is why? Why did these early people devote this kind of time and effort to constructing these things? Good examples of opaque documents. Now, just a minute or two on ways that artifacts are lost. And these are all obvious, but it's worth thinking about. Clifftop sites where erosion takes place. If there are artifacts along those cliff tops, as they erode away, the artifacts are going to be lost. Flooding will wash away artifacts and scatter them. Plowing. A plow will turn the ground over, and if there are human artifacts just beneath the surface, they can be destroyed. Dredging. We dredge rivers to create canals so that larger ships can use them. We dredge beaches to push sand up on the beach to preserve them. And dredging, of course, will destroy artifacts if they're encountered. Another obvious way to destroy artifacts is through mining. You've all seen mines or these giant quarries where we dig down deep into the earth, and we can obviously encounter and destroy artifacts by doing so. Construction. The city of Atlanta, close by, is under constant construction. I've never seen a city that tears things down and rebuilds them as much as we do. And construction, of course, is obviously a way of burying or destroying artifacts. Railroad construction, the same thing. Shipwrecks. A ship lies at the bottom of the sea. The wave action will scatter artifacts across the bottom of the sea. Quite often, cities are built on top of cities. A very attractive site will find continual settlement there, and cities built on top of earlier settlements. This is a good way of destroying artifacts. I can think of one example here that struck me. This has probably been 20, 25 years ago. As I recall, there was a developer in South Florida, maybe Miami, and he purchased a piece of property, and he was going to build, I think, a combination of commercial and residential buildings on it. When they discovered an ancient Indian ritual site, I don't remember if they determined what the site was for, but archaeologists and other scholars were very excited about it and protested that the developer could not destroy this very valuable site simply to build buildings for profit. And of course, the developer had the attitude of, well, it's my property, I can do with it as I wish. I believe this ended up in court, or maybe an arbitrator got involved, but they worked it out, so it was a win-win situation. The developer went ahead and built his buildings, but he left the ancient Indian site intact and built the buildings around it so that visitors and everyday workers there could actually visit the site and see this sort of ancient Indian ritual ground. So this is just a quick survey to give you some notion of how artifacts can be preserved so that we can examine them for meaning later, or ways in which they are forever lost. Thank you.